A young woman is tasked with killing hideous demons disguised as students in a school. However, the woman has to be very keen since not everyone is who they seem to be, and a little mistake might cause her to kill human beings. Will she succeed in her mission, or will her devilishly attractive male friend suffer the consequences? The movie begins at a train station where passengers disembark in an orderly fashion, paying no attention to the movement around them. Saya keeps her head down, never looking up, and appears to be holding a covered-up katana. Once all the passengers have disembarked, the conductor signals the train to proceed to its destination of Asakusa. Saya and another male passenger are secluded in one compartment. The man is slumped over, dozing after what seems to be a long day. Saya lifts her head and stares at the sleeping man. In a way, the man senses the stare and looks back at Saya just as the train enters a tunnel. When the light comes on in their cabin, she leaps into action, darting at the male passenger, whose face looks like he has messed his pants as he frantically tries to flee the sudden assault. Still, unfortunately, Saya draws her sword and slices his back before he can make it into the next cabin. The lights come back on as she picks up a blood-stained piece of paper. 3 bloodstains on the cabin door, hinting at what just happened. When the train arrives in Asakusa, the other passengers begin to disembark, unaware of the murder. When David and his partner Lois find Saya on the train, they ask her where the Chiropterans are, and she directs them into the cabin. Chiropterans are bat-like creatures with intelligence comparable to humans who disguise themselves as people while feeding on human blood. When killed, they revert to their original form. She complains to David about her sword being dull and requests a new one. He explains that they don't have time as another Chiropteran is suspected to be around. After confirming his identity, he hands over the mission documents and claims that swords of such caliber are nearly impossible to get by. After examining the body, Lois informs his superior that what Saya killed on the train was not a Chiropteran, but a human. He is ignored, but he does not seem to get the hint, so he keeps going about how they shouldn't kill humans on impulse. Irritated, Saya grabs him by his mouth, stopping his rambling. David pleads for her to let him go. Before he can finish the mission brief, she walks away, throwing the documents in the bin, which the agent quickly retrieves before scolding Lois. Because Lois had irritated her, he informs him that based on their information, she is the last living original vampire. David and Lois work for the Red Shield, a U.S. government agency. In another part of the city, an escort named Mari was discovered dead at her home. The police are investigating, and it has been learned that she was dating an American soldier. Some of her co-workers at the site believe she was murdered and that someone staged the death to appear as a suicide. On her way to school, one escort reveals a similar case from the previous month at the base school, where they complain about an increase in such instances disrupting business. Saya passes through the school corridors and is greeted by the school nurse Alice McKee, who attempts to have small talk with her in Japanese. Saya ignores her and only asks for the location of the principal's office, which Alice escorts her to. David is already there and introduces Saya to the principal. He dismisses her to class, but informs her that the school is having a Halloween party. Alice expresses her concern about the school having a party while a student recently died on the premises, but her concerns go unheard as the principal tells her to get back to work. Saya criticizes the school uniform as David gives her an update on the mission. The agent underlines the importance of finding and eliminating the monsters before they hibernate, as David gives her an update on the operation. She urges him to merely watch the situation and find her a new sword as the bell rings, signaling the end of class. Sharon, a classmate of Saya's, tries to be pleasant, but she conveys her desire to be left alone in a frigid manner, which Saya takes offense to. Sharon and her friend Linda lead the students to prepare for the Halloween party, and Saya takes advantage of the opportunity to investigate. She goes to the school infirmary with heightened senses and finds evidence that the Chiropterans feed on their victims inside. She prepares to attack when she hears footsteps approaching the infirmary, and Alice enters, startled by Saya's presence. Later, the original vampire overhears Sharon asking the teacher for permission to take Linda to the infirmary because she is anemic. As Linda lies in bed, the nurse converses with Sharon, her back turned. Linda sits up and starts speaking with her friend. Saya pushes Alice out of the way, slicing Sharon's arm as she drags the medicine cabinet between them. She lets out a horrible howl that shatters the lights and windows before leaving. These two are chiropterans. Saya hits the nurse and tells her to forget what she has just seen. She takes her shattered sword and scales the base barrier. Sharon stumbles through the corridor using one of the Halloween banners to cover herself before alerting the third chiropteran of the situation, which turns out to be one of the escorts. She goes to the back of the bar and starts a fire. Turning into a chiropteran, she leaves. The agents hear the call and quickly adjust their course. Saya breaks into the antique store, searching for the katana she had seen before. Back at school, the nurse follows Sharon's blood trail into the Halloween party, weaving through the dancing children and adults with her borrowed sword in hand, waiting for her chance to strike. The nurse searches intently for her student as the highly stimulating environment fades into the background. Even the fascinating landscape begins to fade into the background as she nears the trail's end and comes face to face with a covered, stooped figure as it turns to face Alice. Sharon's countenance changes from interest to terror as she fully transforms into her chiropteran form. Saya dashes before the nurse and attacks, but the sword bends, revealing it to be a fake. The monster punches the original vampire out of the dance hall, apprehends Alice before she can scream, and shrouds her in the banner before quietly leaving the party. Since it was Halloween, the atmosphere helped the monster because the partygoers didn't realize anything and probably assumed it was a realistic costume. Saya stabs the chiropteran with the bootleg sword, allowing the nurse to flee. Meanwhile, David has tracked down the third monster just outside the base. He tries shooting it to stop it, but to no avail. Wielding the replacement sword in hand, he rushes back to the base. The noise from the party drowns out all the commotion outside. Elsewhere, a terrified Alice runs into a soldier. He dismisses her attempts to explain the situation, so she decides to lead him to the scene. However, the soldier is ambushed and killed by the monster. Saya catches up with Alice and discards her useless sword. Saya catches up to the beast and throws her broken blade at it as it retreats. She then picks up the soldier's pistol and urges Alice to go. They've entered a restricted area, so another soldier asks them to identify themselves, which she does by knocking him out and identifying her fists with his stomach. The two then make their way into a vehicle hangar, where Saya hands the nurse the gun and explains that she's been marked by the chiropteran and has seen their proper form, so they won't let her live unless she kills them first. She inquires as to what they are. The vampire explains that they are demons who feed on human blood. She also stresses that they must lose a lot of blood in one strike to die, which the gun cannot achieve. As a last resort, she offered her the gun to take her own life. Saya hears movement outside and rushes to the gate only to find it locked. As she tries to open the door, the light goes out and a demon bursts through the skylight. Alice lets off a volley of gunshots as the monster approaches her, a stray bullet hitting one of the vehicle's fuel tanks and engulfing the demon in flames. When Saya hears David fire at a chiropteran, she signals her location. A second explosion raises the temperature within the hangar, causing the nurse and the demon to reawaken. They have unfinished business, so the original vampire interrupts it on its approach to devour Alice. She drops the rifle and begins fighting as David makes his way to the hangar, only to discover that a knocked-out soldier has blocked it with no functional weapon. Saya halts the nurse and asks her to get into a car, which she uses to ram down the door, as Saya begins to be overpowered and damaged by the monster. Alice loses faith and puts the gun to her head. David hurls the new sword at Saya, and she grabs it in one fluid motion, cutting the demon in half. As it watches its comrade die, the last chiropteran forms wings and takes off. The agent alerts Lois of the location of the unconscious nurse. David and Saya chase as the demon tries to stow away on a departing cargo plane. They catch up to it. Saya manages to strike the Chiropteran and mortally wounds it. She stands over the dying creature and lets some of her blood trickle into its mouth. Strangely, this is the only moment in the entire ordeal she smiles. Lois arrives and recovers the nurse before local police arrive. Following that, government officials question Alice about the events of the night. She is asked to identify Saya from an 1892 photograph titled Vampire. The evidence of Saya's combat with the Chiropterans has been obliterated. David and Saya have also vanished, leaving her with no proof of her story's veracity. She wonders if they are still fighting the Chiropterans. Remember to subscribe for more recaps.